How does our gut health influence our mental health and the way that our brain functions and our anxiety? Well, it's pretty fascinating. There are so many ways that our gut interacts with our brain, and it's really exciting because when we build our gut health to a state where it's at its optimum, then our brain can function more clearly. We get better cognition, better memory, less brain fog, and less anxiety. So, where I would start with this is first understanding that you have a neural pathway called the vagus nerve that connects your brain to your gut. And this nerve is very easily triggered depending on your mental state. So, your anxiety and stress will trigger the vagus nerve, and that will cause digestive symptoms. So, if you have had a particularly stressful, anxious day, you will notice that potentially your bowels are, you feel some discomfort there. You'll notice that for some people, they get constipation and they don't go at all. For other people, everything kind of loosens up and we get diarrhea or loose stools forming. Regardless, the digestive system is clearly not working at its optimum in that state. There is a feedback that goes back up the vagus nerve though, and this comes from our gut microbiome. So the little bacteria and microorganisms, viruses, protozoa, and fungi that live in your gut, they actually outnumber our human cells 10 to 1. It is quite fascinating to think that we are more bacteria and microorganism than we are human matter, right? It's pretty crazy. Well, these guys also create chemical messengers and send them up our vagus nerve into our brain. And that can actually regulate the level of brain chemicals there. So things like you might have heard of serotonin before. GABA is the other one. This is gamma aminobutyric acid. It is your anti-anxiety best friend because it is very calming for the brain and the nervous system. So we can upregulate that. We can make the effect more potent, we can improve that system by looking after our gut microbiome. And one of the best ways we can do this is to ensure we are consuming on a regular basis plenty of fiber, because fiber feeds our good bacteria. So this is things like oats, nuts and seeds, the skin of your fruit and vegetables. Another thing that your gut bacteria love to eat are colorful fruits and vegetables. So all the different colors, and trying to get a variety of those colors too. So if you've noticed, you're great on the greens, but there's not a lot of yellow, there's not a lot of orange, purple, and red, then there's some places you can improve this and places you can go to optimize your diet and make sure you're getting that variety, because it does really reflect in your gut health. And after 3 days of consuming more of these colorful fruits and vegetables, you will start to change your gut bacteria, which I find very exciting because it's kind of like we don't have to wait for ages for this to change. It happens quite quickly, which is really exciting. The other thing that's really important to note with the way that your gut health impacts your mental state is that our gut lining, you might have heard of something called leaky gut before. Essentially, at the gut wall, we like to keep those cells nice and close together. We like to keep them close together. And when there's some damage to our gut wall that can happen from medications, alcohol, stress, processed foods, not looking after ourselves, not getting enough sleep, all of that will damage our gut wall. So those cells, they start to kind of become inflamed, they swell up and they start to separate. And we get holes forming between the cells that line the gut wall. When this happens, essentially anything can start to leak through into your bloodstream. Instead of when we've got the cells, they're all nice and close together, it's like this barrier protecting the bloodstream, and there's a beautiful regulation process that happens so that we don't get too much of these chemicals, of these unwanted substances in the bloodstream. When there are holes in the wall though, that whole process kind of goes out the wall, and goes out the wall, out the door, and we end up having unwanted substances in our bloodstream that trigger inflammation. There's then inflammation in our bloodstream, and that inflammation translates to our brain. So if there's a leaky gut, there's a leaky blood-brain barrier. And when we have mild inflammation in the brain, we are less able to regulate those calming chemicals in our brain as well. So, it's a really great idea to look after your gut health. As I said, some practices you can keep in mind to manage your gut health are to limit drugs and alcohol, to limit medications or avoid them altogether if possible, making sure that you are managing your stress and anxiety levels as best as you can, getting plenty of sleep, and generally looking after yourself in those ways. They are some really important ways that we can make a huge difference for our gut health just by simply cutting out the factors that damage our gut lining. I hope that's been really helpful for you. And if you want to learn more about my work, visit me at Georgie the Naturopath on Instagram, or you can join my program if the enrollment is open currently. It is Reset Your Anxious Mind in 90 Days, and you'll find a link below to learn more.